Good morning, Year 7. First of all, I want to say well done for all the fantastic work that many of you have done and submitted over the last few weeks. We're going to go through some of the areas that you should have looked at over the last few weeks with the work that we've set at home with regards to the Islamic Empire, some of the important people. Those that have not done the work, use this opportunity to look back over the video, pause certain areas, and make notes and make sure that we are continuing as normal as we possibly can. So look out in a moment for the colour green that will appear on the map. That is, as you can see, that's how Islam was born and how it spread throughout North Africa and at first sort of Southern Europe and then eastwards. So you would have looked at people like Ibn Sina, a very, very important Islamic philosopher and thinker, and contributed a great deal to Islamic medicine. You can make comparisons to someone like Galen. He was one of the greatest Islamic thinkers and doctors of all time. He lived from about 980 AD to 1037 AD. He travelled around the entire Islamic Empire very, very far. If you think about, no cars or trains or airplanes in those days. He wrote over 200 books on a range of different topics. But as I say, it's mostly on science and medicine. So one of the most important books that he wrote was the Book of Healing. And that was being used in European universities and by doctors in Europe and throughout the world until the 1700s. So he said that people could catch diseases from other people. Now that has never been more relevant than now. Okay, that's one of the reasons why I'm having to try and stream this lesson from home, is because this idea that people can potentially pass on coronavirus. People didn't know that diseases could pass from one person to another, in 900 or 1000 AD, because we didn't know about germs, we didn't know about bacteria. Okay, so that came later. But Ibn Sina was a very, very forward thinker for his time.
Oh, terrific. I am Dr. Usman.
Yes, and he's an Arabian healer from the 1100s.
Well, that is a nasty looking abscess. No, it's fine, honestly. I'm feeling a lot better. It doesn't hurt?
Oh.
Well, just a tiny bit. This dressing, prepared from healing herbs, will soon reduce that swelling.
Herbs? Leave it. I don't.
Actually, that feels rather soothing. Thank you, Doctor. My pleasure. Next patient, please, nurse.
Right.
Well, it really worked.
Sorry I'm late, Dr. Nutpair here, Crusader Doctor from Smith Pages. But it appears to be a problem.
It's all right. I've just been seen by the Arabian healer.
That primitive fool! What you need is some proper European Crusader medicine.
Actually, it feels a lot better.
Nonsense, we must cut off this leg.
What?
Bite down on this. Well, yes, amputation is a cure-all procedure for us European Crusaders.
What are you doing? Stop it!
So you may remember that horrible histories clip. That's a comparison between the very forward-thinking Islamic doctors of the 1000 AD sort of era, compared to what was considered quite backward in medieval Europe. You would have also looked at people like Ibn Rashid. Now, Ibn Rashid was an important thinker and philosopher from that time as well. He spent a lot of time studying, translating very important thinkers like Aristotle from ancient Greece. So not only was he full of his own ideas about science and medicine and mathematics, and also about, I suppose, religion as well, he was also able to translate other important thinkers to the Arabic world that wouldn't have been able to have read Latin beforehand. So he commentated on Aristotle's work, translated it, as I say, into Latin, so people in Europe and the Islamic world could read it. And in more modern times, historians like Daniel Levering Lewis have argued that this caused the Reformation. So we should hopefully remember that word from the first term, and the Renaissance. I don't know if you recognise the person playing guitar, or the green guitar there. It was in fact me. But my point is this, okay? Without the Islamic world, I would not have been able to take up the guitar. I would not have been influenced by many guitar players because it hadn't been invented. There was a lot of artistic creativity in the Islamic times. Music and dancing was promoted and thought to be very, very important parts of life. So the guitar, which has played an enormous part of my life, maybe if some of you play guitar as well, was invented during this time. There were multiple accounts of Caliph al-Rahman supporting musicians throughout his rule. In addition to this, Eastern Islamic Empire, which is now modern-day Turkey, formed a new form of dance, which is known as the whirling dervish. Okay, so this was involved in dancers completely, spinning around, energetic dances. This would have influenced dance in modern Europe. And what about the advancements in maths? Well, al-Khwarizmi, okay, very important mathematician, was one of the first people to use the system of numbers that we use today, including the number 0. The number 0 is very, very important because above 0 are positive numbers, plus numbers. When you go below 0, you've got negative numbers. So measuring things like temperature, how many times in December, January time when we were coming into school, thick with ice, frost, I think there's some snow, and temperatures were, -2 or 3. How do we measure those temperatures if it had not been for the Islamic mathematicians? And also algebra. He is seen as the creator of algebra. Now, Caliph al-Rahman III is someone else that you would have looked at, I think, in the week before we broke up for Easter. That was part of your work then. He was the Caliph, which means ruler. So he ruled the Islamic Empire for around 50 years or so. We'll get onto that in a moment. He was the son of a Christian and Islamic prince, so a very mixed background that he came from, which was quite unusual for the time. So he became ruler after his grandfather died in 902 AD. And as I say, he ruled for just under 50 years, 49 years. He died in 961 AD. And he was considered at the time, we wouldn't necessarily make these comparisons now, but at the time he was considered to look more Christian than Arab because he had fair skin, blue eyes, reddish hair, and he even dyed his hair and I think his beard black because he believed that made him look Arabic. And he could speak Spanish and Arabic, which meant that he could communicate with people in Cordoba, the Spanish speakers, and the Arabic speakers. So a lot of Caliph al-Rahman's reign was taken up with defending his kingdom against enemy invasions. Those invasions came from the north, okay, the Spanish Christians, but they also came from other Muslims as well, other Islamic groups like the Fatimids. He was a leader and managed to make his country, known as the Al-Andalus, bigger than when he became ruler. Now, his reign, okay, so the word that's missing there, because of my head's in the way, is libraries, okay? He built an enormous library which held 40,000 books. So that means the Islamic Empire was seen as a place of learning, the educational center of the world. So scholars and academics would travel far and wide to visit the library. As I say, many people were forced to become Muslims, but many people chose to as well. Jewish people and Christians could continue to practice their religion, but they had to pay money to their ruler. So that leads us to who is this? Well, this is Mehdi Hasan, who you would have done some work on. Mehdi Hasan is a Muslim journalist. He writes a lot about politics, and he also has published many books, and he defends Muslims who really come under attack, I suppose, from newspapers and from people who you might consider to be Islamophobic.
By the way, sort of factual points, as we heard a lot about the second speaker about how backward we Muslims all are. On a factual point, you said that Islam was born in Saudi Arabia. Islam was born in 610 AD. Saudi Arabia was born in 1932 AD. So you were only 1,322 years off. Not bad? Not bad start there. Talking of maths, by the way, a man named al-Khwarizmi was one of the greatest mathematicians of all time, a Muslim, worked in the golden age of Islam. He's the guy who came up with not just algebra, but algorithms. Without algorithms, you wouldn't have laptops. Without laptops, Daniel Johnson tonight wouldn't have been able to print out his speech in which he came to berate us Muslims for holding back the advance and intellectual achievements of the West, which all happened without any contribution from anyone else other than the Judeo-Christian people of Europe. In fact, Daniel David Levering, the author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning historian and author of The Golden Crucible, points out that there would be no Renaissance, there would be no Reformation in Europe without the role played by Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd and some of the great Muslim theologians, philosophers, scientists in bringing Greek text.
If you want to pause this, then you can do. That is what part of Mehdi Hasan's speech there at the Oxford Union. And there are some of our keywords that we've looked at earlier: Renaissance and Reformation. I hope this has been helpful, Year 7, and I hope to do another one soon about work that you've done since. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy.